Welcome back to the Morning Blend. There are less than 50 boards certified by the National College for DUI Defense Lawyers in the United States. There are only 3 of those right here in Arizona.
And we are lucky to be sitting down with one of them. James Nesci joins us. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So tell us, what should someone be looking for when they select an attorney?
Well, you know, one of the things you want to look at is competence. You want to look at experience. You want to look at the entire firm. You want to determine what type of education do they have, how many cases have they tried, that sort of thing. I always recommend what people do is they go ahead and they pick our firm and another 1 or 2 firms. Go interview the lawyers, sit down, talk to them, find out if they know what they're talking about, because DUI is a very specialized area of practice. I mean, for example, we don't do personal injury. I wouldn't touch a personal injury case if it walked in, no matter what it looked like. I'd send it to somebody who knows what they do. And that's one of the things you really want to do is sit down and be comfortable with the attorney. Because if you spend a lot of money and you hire an attorney and you can't sleep at night, that's not a good thing.
Well, and you mentioned the money, and you always hear such wide-ranging prices for how much it's going to cost you if you get a DUI. What is that like financially?
Well, there are 2 things. I mean, if you get convicted, obviously there are thousands of dollars in fines, but there are other collateral consequences. I mean, for example, you can't go to Canada. If you're not a Canadian citizen, you get a misdemeanor DUI in the United States. You may lose your job. You lose your license for 90 days at least. You'll have to have an ignition interlock, and there are all those things you have to pay for. On the flip side of that are attorney's fees. I mean, obviously, don't try to ever do something like this yourself. You know,
right.
That's really important, though, because people do try that.
Well, yeah. You know, look, you walk into court. The government has a lawyer. He or she is called a prosecutor. That person is going to try and put you in jail. You need to have somebody on your side who knows what they're doing, and you have to pay for that. I mean, you know, that's just one of the things that we have in our society. You know, if you can't afford an attorney, certainly you can have a public defender, and there are many very good, competent public defenders. But with our firm, what we do is this: we take on less cases than other firms and other attorneys do, but we put more time into them. You know, on an hourly basis, if you were to break it down that way, we probably get a little more than everybody else, but not a whole lot more. On a per case basis, we get a lot more because we simply put more time into them. You know, you have to run down every lead, you have to attack every single thing that the prosecution is going to throw at you. And it takes time and money to do that.
Well, I think something huge you said is that you're specialized. When you're specialized, you know what you're doing more than, say, you know, the next average Joe attorney who they might go to. You know what you're doing. So how important is it to have someone who's actually DUI board certified to represent you?
Sure. Board certification, unlike a certified criminal law specialist, is a national certification. There are less than 50 people. Actually, you know what? As of January, there are going to be a little more than 50 because a couple of people passed the exam. It's very difficult to get. When I sat for the exam, 16 of us sat for the exam. Only 3 of us passed.
Wow.
In 2007, and it's at some weird location too, it always changes throughout the country. In 2007, 10 people sat for the exam and all 10 failed. So it's a 2-year-long process to qualify for it, and then you have to sit. It's a mix of essay, it's a mix of multiple choice, short answer, and then there's the oral boards as well. So it's a very difficult designation.
Rigorous.
Yeah. I was in the first 6 people who became board certified.
That's a great honor for you.
And James, one of the reasons that you're so important in Arizona is because Arizona has one of the strictest DUI laws in the country, and that's something that people need to be aware of as they go through this process.
Without a doubt. Utah is probably second, and Kansas is probably third. But yes, without a doubt, Arizona has the strictest, most harsh laws. I mean, look, we're the only state that allows police to draw blood from people by the side of the road.
Right.
Yeah, you need a license to cut somebody's hair in Arizona. You don't need a license to puncture a vein and draw blood. So guess what? The cops aren't licensed. They must be able to draw blood. And the legislature said, yeah, that's right, they can.
Well, and that's part of a field sobriety test. Do you have to submit to one if you get pulled over and you've been drinking? Well,
A breath test or a blood test, yes, if you're placed under arrest. Otherwise, you'll lose your license for a year, and then they'll get a search warrant for your blood and hold you down and hurt you while they draw blood. The field sobriety test, walk a straight line, stand on one leg, that sort of stuff. The courts have said you don't have the right to refuse, but there's no penalty for refusing. The only thing they get to do is tell the jury that you didn't want to stand on one leg by the side of the road after midnight, you know, which is a ridiculous test in the first place.
And this is something that I've kind of heard before. Do you have to actually be drinking to be charged with a DUI?
No. As a matter of fact, that's one thing that our office does, which is different from many other offices. What happens is you can get a DUI on prescription medication, for certainly illegal drugs, but you can get a DUI on prescription medications that you are prescribed by your doctor and that you are taking as directed. even if you're not impaired. You can get a DUI for simply having it in your system. Then what you have to do is you have to fight and show that you had a prescription and you were taking it properly.
That's just scary. Well, you know, just talking to you, you inspire confidence. And anyone who is faced with a situation like this needs someone like you by their side so that they can have the best outcome for the situation. So I want to thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about it.
Thank you for having me.
And to your point, too, the government's going to have a lawyer. You should have one, too.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
To learn more about the Nesci and St Louis law firm, including free consultations for any DUI or criminal case, you can call 622-1222 or log on to azdefense.com.